Hey guys, tonight we're stepping inside the gilded cages of medieval palaces, where wearing a crown did not bring comfort but endless duty, fear, and loneliness. Forget the romantic tales of courtly splendor. The real life of a queen was grueling, dangerous, and often lonely. So tonight we ask what it really meant to spend just one day as a medieval queen, where every sunrise brought a new ceremony, every word carried political weight, and every meal could hide poison. Every era had its own trials, so let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. It's always amazing to see whose journey we join tonight. Now, dim the lights, pull your blanket close, and let's uncover the real palace together. You awaken before dawn, long before the first pale light appears on the horizon. The curtains around your bedchamber lie closed, but the faint glow of torchlight filters through the gaps in the wooden shutters. You lie still for a moment, feeling the weight of your silver crown resting on the velvet cushion at the foot of your bed. Your body aches from yesterday's courtly ceremonies and the corset that constricted your waist. You draw a breath and steel yourself for the day ahead. A gentle rap on the door breaks the silence. Your lady, in waiting, slips inside without a word and sets a small brazier at the bedside. The flame snaps to life, sending sparks dancing against the tapestry-covered walls. You swing your legs over the edge of the bed and feel the chill of stone floors beneath your silk slippers. Your back stiffens as you rise and reach for the long shift laid out for you. Each layer of linen and wool feels stiff and scratchy before you even begin to dress. You slip into the undergarment of linen and pull a simple wool gown over your head. The heavy fabric rustles against your skin, warm in the small glow of the brazier but cold where the breeze drifts through the open window. Your lady, in waiting, draws the curtains and lifts the crown from its velvet cushion. You steady yourself against the bedpost as she settles the circlet of silver and polished gems on your brow. The weight is more than metal. It is the burden of alliances and the hopes of generations. A bell tolls softly in the distance to summon the court to dawn prayers. You rise and let your lady, in waiting, tie the laces of your gown and adjust the cloak of ermine that drapes your shoulders. Each knot must be perfect for the messengers and envoys who will arrive in the great hall at first light. You offer no complaint as she fastens the jeweled brooch at your throat. Her deft fingers touch nothing but metal and velvet. She knows the crown must rest without fail. You pass through the silent corridors with your small cortege of ladies and pages. Torches line the walls, their flames steady but dim. Each step echoes on the flagstones beneath your slippers. You feel eyes watching you from the darkened doorways of sleeping servants and guards. The palace itself seems to hold its breath in reverence and dread. You lift your chin to your lady, in, waiting, and offer a small nod. No word passes your lips. Your voice will be needed soon in the chapel. The chapel door stands open at the end of the corridor. You enter and kneel on the cold stone floor before the altar. Oil lamps burn in sconces carved into the walls. Their amber light trembles on the polished marble of the altar rail. A choir of monks stands in shadow at the far end, their chant rising and falling in solemn waves. You bow your head and offer a silent prayer in Latin. Each word forms on your tongue like a promise you cannot break. As the last note of the hymn fades, you rise and step forward. Your gown rustles across the stone floor. You approach the high altar where the abbot waits to offer communion. The scent of incense swirls around you. You taste the warmth of wax and myrrh on your lips. The abbot lifts a small loaf of sacred bread and breaks it in half. You part your lips and receive the host with trembling grace. A single taste of consecrated bread fills you with a fleeting sense of peace. The service concludes with a final blessing. You cross yourself and withdraw from the chapel, your lady, in, waiting, matching your steps as though bound to your very shadow. You walk through the cloister where the first birds begin to stir. You catch sight of doves roosting in the eaves, their white feathers bright against the dark stones. You pause to let the small moment of dawn fill you before you face the day's demands. The great hall lies beyond the cloister, its doors swung wide to admit the pale light of morning. You enter to find the chamberlain and court officials waiting in silent order. Tapestries hang along the walls, depicting your ancestors in scenes of war and triumph. The vaulted ceiling soars overhead, its arches carved with vines and heraldic symbols. You step onto the raised dais, where your throne stands draped in cloth of gold and crimson velvet. A page kneels beside the throne and holds your coronation ring and scepter. You lift the ring and slip it onto your finger. A hush falls over the assembled courtiers as the jewel's facets catch the light. You lift the scepter and feel the curve of polished wood beneath your hand. The weight of office is heavier even than the crown. You place it gently in your lap. The chamberlain steps forward and unfolds a scroll. He reads aloud the morning's order tributes to be collected, ambassadors to receive, justice petitions to hear. Each decree feels like another stone added to your burden. You nod to acknowledge each command. Your lady, in, waiting, adjusts your cloak and smooths your hair. You feel her gentle hand brushing away a stray lock that has fallen across your brow. A herald steps forward to summon the first envoy from the neighboring duchy. He bows low and withdraws. You rise and descend the dais. Your throne is left empty, your crown perched on its velvet cushion. You glide across the hall to greet the envoy, each step measured to maintain the dignity your position demands. You stand before the great fireplace, its hearth alight with a morning blaze. A servant hands you a small cup of spiced wine and a platter of thin bread. You taste the warmth of wine on your tongue, savoring the fleeting comfort before the tasks begin in earnest. You swallow carefully and step forward to greet the envoy with a measured smile. By the time the sun has risen fully over the towers, you have heard more petitions, issued more commands, and broken more fasts than most would in a week. Yet each moment from the prayer before dawn to the first audience sets the tone for the rest of your day. You carry the weight of the silver crown and the burden of your lineage, all borne in silence beneath the torchlight of an empty palace. The quiet of dawn offers no reprieve, only the promise of labors still to come. You leave the great hall where the envoy has taken his leave and make your way through the private corridors toward your oratory. The marble walls glisten with torchlight and carved niches, hold statues of saints whose faces seem to watch you as you pass. Your steps echo softly on the polished stone. You feel every ounce of that silver circlet pressing at your temples. Hunger tugs at your belly, but you dare not acknowledge it until your duties permit. Inside the oratory, a single candle glows on a stone altar. A small, stained glass window shows pale dawn light sliding across the floor. You kneel on the cool flagstones and cross yourself in silent prayer. You whisper the morning hours in Latin, reciting psalms of praise and petitions for wisdom and mercy. Your throat tightens when you reach the verses that speak of sin and forgiveness. You feel the weight of your choices in every word. After the office, you rise and stand before a carved wooden lectern. A leather-bound book lies open, its pages edged with gold leaf. You trace the illuminated letter at the beginning of the gospel reading. You allow yourself one slow breath to drink in the calm before the bustle of court descends. In this moment you bear no crown. You are only a penitent soul seeking counsel. A gentle knock sounds at the door. Your confessor enters, a kindly face framed by grey hair and simple robes. He carries a small box of relics and a silver crucifix. You rise to greet him. He offers the crucifix and listens as you speak of the anxieties that have troubled you since the envoy's departure. You speak of fear for your realm, of doubts about the counsel you have given, of sorrow for the lives caught in the tides of politics. He places a hand on your shoulder and offers absolution in a soft voice. You kneel before him, and offer a brief confession of your failures. You name the impatience you felt in council, the hesitation that almost delayed justice, the pride that flared when your orders were obeyed. As he grants you penance, you feel a measure of relief, as if the confession has lightened the heaviness in your chest. Rising once more, you look to the tiny window where the sky has brightened to pale blue. You bow to your confessor and take back your crown from the table where it rested. You lift it carefully and settle it upon your head. The gems catch the light in facets of red and green. You feel again the burden of lineage and expectation, but now you carry it renewed in spirit. Your ladies attend as you leave the oratory and cross the gallery toward your dressing chamber. Robes of silk and velvet hang on carved pegs. A matronly courtier helps you into a gown of deep sapphire trimmed with embroidered gold thread. The fabric is heavier than velvet, but it drapes with regal grace. You slip your arms into the sleeves and feel the seamstress adjust the bodice so it fits your waist perfectly. You stand as still as a statue while pins secure layers of underskirt and overdress. Each garment holds the promise of authority and the promise of scrutiny. Next, you pass into the council chamber where the morning's papers lie waiting. Scribes hover at their desks, quills poised above inkpots. Roll after roll of parchment bears news from distant provinces, decrees from neighboring kings, petitions from your own subjects. You take your seat on the throne, the soft cushions pressing under your robes. A scribe stands to your left, ready to take your hand as you sign or revise. Another holds a tray of wax seals and stamps. You scan the first petition, a plea from merchants claiming unjust tariffs. You feel the weight of every coin that trades through your ports. You dictate a careful response, instructing the chamberlain to investigate abuses and to ease levies if necessary. You sign your name and press the seal of state into the warm wax. You write as though your life depends on every flourish, as though each stroke must reflect mercy and firmness. A page announces the arrival of a royal tutor with letters from your husband's court. You rise and receive him at the dais. He kneels and presents dispatches sealed in crimson ribbon. You break the seals and unfold the scrolls. Reports of court intrigue and shifting alliances spill out across the parchment. You lean forward to read the small script by the light of a polished brass lamp. Your hand trembles as you interpret the words. Each name on the page carries the weight of a promise or a threat. You take a deep breath and commit your decisions to parchment. By now, the sun peaks above the battlements, and candlelight fades behind it. A page offers you a cup of clear water and a small plate of figs and almonds. You accept with a nod. You tuck a single fig into your mouth and taste its sweetness through the dryness of the morning. You sip the water and feel warmth fill your chest. You allow yourself one brief moment of solace before the next audience begins. A line of petitioners awaits outside the chamber doors. Each kneels before the dais to plead their case. You listen to the widow seeking restitution for lands seized by a corrupt steward. You grant her petition with a governing smile and a nod. A noble suitor petitions for the hand of your daughter. You consider his lineage and his loyalty before granting an audience. Each decision carries the weight of lives and of dynasties. As the mid-morning bell tolls, you rise from the throne. Your gown rustles with the movement, the gold thread catching in the sun. You step down from the dais and pass behind the dais screen. You remove your crown, feeling the cool metal slip from your brow. You place it on a velvet cushion and step back to the scribe's table. You mark your final decrees and seal them with your signet ring. You feel the hunger and the exhaustion pressing at your limbs. Yet you will not break until your duties are done. You gather the morning's papers and command them to be delivered to their destinations. You bow to the assembled courtiers and exit back into the corridors. Your ladies and pages flock to you, ready to arrange your next appointments and to carry your mantle as you walk in state. You return to the private wing of the palace for the brief repast that follows morning council. You kneel at a small side table and partake of thin stew and fresh bread. You taste the flavors more acutely now that dawn prayers and audiences have sharpened your senses. You swallow with gratitude for this small comfort before the demands of afternoon service begin. Rising from your chair, you adjust your sleeves and smooth your hair. You feel the ghosts of the chapel and the council chamber still stretching your spirit. Yet you walk with grace and authority. You bear the crown and the cloak of responsibility. You have faced prayers by torchlight, confessions before dawn, the crush of council, the weight of state dispatches. You have done more before sunrise than many would in a week. And still the day stretches ahead, demanding every ounce of your strength. You carry your crown to the window and watch the courtyard fill with morning light. You taste the cold and the hunger, the pressure and the pride. You remember that you would not last a day as a medieval queen unless your soul were girded with iron faith and unwavering devotion. In that strength, you rise to meet the dawn once more. You step into the grand chapel just as the first shafts of daylight filter through stained glass windows. The air is thick with incense and the soft murmur of clergy preparing for Mass. You pause at the threshold to smooth the folds of your gown and arrange the jeweled brooch at your throat. A page holds your train so that it does not sweep the stone floor. You bow your head and offer a silent prayer before moving to your assigned place among the ladies of the court. The service begins with the toll of a single bell. You stand when the procession enters, lifting your eyes only enough to follow the line of robed priests. You know the precise moment to crouch for the sign of the cross and the exact angle at which to bow for the reading of the gospel. Your heart hammers when the chorus of singers lifts its voices, yet you remain calm, letting the ritual wash over you so that every movement becomes second nature. After communion, you glide from the chapel back into the sunlit hall, where courtiers await the rituals that follow. A herald reads the day's proclamations from a scroll held high at the dais. You step forward to acknowledge a decree in your favor. You incline your head and offer a gracious smile to the assembled nobles. You keep your tone measured as you reply, pronouncing the words that bind you to the realm and its laws. Next, you join the council of ladies in the antechamber. Here you must master the art of small talk and subtle flattery. You greet each lady with a courteous nod, memorizing the exact cadence of their titles and estates. You mention the bloom of the roses in the palace gardens and inquire after the health of their children. Your questions are crafted to place them at ease and to gather news for your steward. At the same time, you avoid any slip of the tongue that might give offense or reveal impatience. When the court assembles in the great hall for mid-morning refreshment, you take your place beside the Queen's mother. Servants pass around sweet buns and spiced wine in narrow flutes. You lift the glass with your fingertips and take a small sip, careful to avoid smudging your lips or spilling a drop on your gown. You nibble at the pastry in measured bites. A crumb falls to the floor. You bend only your eyes and beckon a servant with a soft gesture to sweep it away. No one else need know that even a queen must master the smallest details. The hours pass in a steady stream of audiences and ceremonies. You oversee the presentation of new ambassadors, and you receive petitions from widows seeking the return of confiscated lands. Each request carries with it a test of your diplomacy and compassion. You listen with attentive eyes, waiting for the right moment to speak words of reassurance or to ask for further details. Your court advisors stand behind you, offering counsel in whispered tones. You nod in agreement or raise a hand to pause their speech so that your voice can carry the decision. When the midday bell tolls, you return to your private chambers for a brief repast. You sit at a small table where ladies, in waiting place bowls of broth and platters of cold bread. You eat sparingly, mindful of your duty to appear composed and energetic. You thank each attendant with a gracious smile. You rise before the last crumb is gone and prepare for the next round of audiences. In the late afternoon, you call together the artisans who maintain the palace. You inspect the repairs to the tapestry in the withdrawing room. You compare thread colors and instruct the head weaver to adjust the pattern so that it better depicts the family's heraldry. Each note you make must be precise. The weaver looks to you for every decision. You speak in calm, measured tones, never betraying the impatience you feel in your shoulders. The sun dips low in the sky, and you move once more to the chapel for evening vespers. You kneel on a velvet cushion provided for your comfort. Again, the rituals of bowing, standing, kneeling fill every moment. You rise and fall with the exact timing of the clergy. You listen to the psalms and recite the responses with perfect pitch. You feel the hush of the chapel like a blanket settling around you, quieting your thoughts so that only the ritual remains. After vespers, the banquet hall awaits. Torches line the walls and the long table is set with pewter plates and goblets of crystal. You take your seat at the high table beneath a canopy of velvet trimmed with gold fringe. The music begins with a soft flourish of lute and viol. You smile as the first course of roasted fowl is carried in. You hold your napkin in your lap and allow the servants to carve each portion. You use the fork and knife provided, alternating them in your right hand with practiced ease. You taste the meat and let the juices roll across your tongue. A maid pours your wine at the exact moment you set down your knife. You sip and incline your head to acknowledge the compliment offered by the master of ceremonies. You engage in polite conversation with the Duke from the north and a lady from the southern marches. You mention the journey they must have made and ask after their safe arrival. You listen when they speak but wait 2 beats before you reply so that your words carry weight. The courses continue: roasted fish with preserved lemon, stewed cherries in rich syrup, honey cakes spiced with ginger. You eat slowly and with decorum. You allow your frown when the steward bores you with a long story about court intrigue to soften into a polite smile. No one sees that you long for the bitter herbs of the fast you resumed at dawn the day before. As the final course is cleared, you rise to deliver a toast. You stand beneath the glow of torchlight and raise your goblet high. You speak of the prosperity of the realm and of peace in the coming year. Your voice fills the hall and echoes off the stone walls. Each word is measured, each pause deliberate. The courtiers raise their flutes and respond in unison. You sip the wine again and feel the weight of eyes upon you. When the banquet draws to a close, you retire to your private bedchamber. Your lady, in waiting, removes the layers of silk and velvet with respectful care. You slip into a simple linen shift and kneel at your bedside. You cross yourself and offer a final prayer of thanks for strength and wisdom. You feel your body ache from the long day of rituals, your mind still racing through every moment you have lived. You lie on the soft mattress and close your eyes. The silver circlet rests on the nearby cushion, waiting for tomorrow. You feel the toll of mastering etiquette from morning mass to evening banquet, of every gesture counted under watchful eyes. You remember that you would not last a day as a medieval queen if you could not bear the endless court rituals that shape every breath of your life. You drift into sleep beneath the hush of velvet and stone, ready to rise again before dawn. You leave the banquet hall with your ladies and make your way through a side corridor toward the palace gardens. The court expects you to walk among the flowering beds each afternoon, giving audiences beneath the shade of ancient yew trees. You step onto the terrace, where the marble balustrade overlooks trimmed hedges and winding gravel paths. A page hands you a small fan of white feathers, and you hold it lightly so that every gesture appears effortless. Behind you, court companions fall into step, their gowns rustling like soft waves. As you walk, courtiers approach one by one to pay their respects. Each kneels with a precise angle of 90 degrees at the knee, and bows without touching the ground. You acknowledge their loyalty with a slight nod of your head and a gentle raise of your fan. Your eyes meet theirs for a heartbeat before you turn toward the next petitioner. In this way, you convey warmth and authority without uttering a single word. A single slip of posture or timing could betray boredom or impatience. A young lady of high birth approaches in a gown of pale silk. She offers you a gift of embroidered gloves. You take them with both hands, pressing the cuffs to your breast. Then hold them aloft to show appreciation before placing them on the small table at your side. A courtier stands ready to note the gift in the ledger so that proper thanks may follow in writing. You smile and continue your stroll, aware of every pair of eyes tracking your every breath. Further along the path, you pause by the fountain to allow a visiting ambassador to lace his speech with compliments. You listen with a gentle tilt of your head, letting your fan drift across your cheek as though following the breeze. You watch the ripples in the water as he praises the strength of your realm. At the right moment, you raise a gloved hand and request clarification on a particular point. His answer is smooth and practiced. You nod, indicating that you accept his words as truth. The sun climbs higher and the temperature rises. Your ladies adjust your cloak to allow more air near your throat and shoulders. You accept the relief with a quiet breath of thanks. You are always aware that your comfort is a privilege not extended to many. Each moment of ease must be balanced with the knowledge that the realm depends on your strength and your composure. After the garden stroll, you return to the throne room for the afternoon's public audience. The floor is covered in a wide Persian rug woven with gold thread that catches the light. You take your seat upon the dais and cross your legs at the ankle, keeping the trainers of your gown tidy. The herald calls forth a procession of petitioners. An orphan pleads for the restoration of her late father's lands. A merchant seeks relief from levies. A knight asks for a boon in planning the border patrol. You listen to each in turn and answer in a calm, measured voice. Your tone must never waver. When you grant a request, you lift a finger and give the precise word of assent taught by your etiquette master. When you deny a request, you press your lips together and offer a brief apology before stating the reason. You never speak of anger or frustration. Even when a petitioner begs with tears in his eyes, you remain firm and gracious. At the doorway to the great hall, you pause to adjust the jewels at your neckline and to allow the chamberlain to hand you the ceremonial napkin of fine damask. You step into the hall where rows of candles and torches burn bright. Music begins with a soft call of the lute, and the herald announces your arrival. You walk to the head of the table and take your seat beneath the canopy. Courtiers rise in unison. The feast begins again with its own rituals of serving and toasting. When dinner ends, you return through the state chambers to your private study. You cross yourself at the threshold and sit at your desk. A steward places the day's accounts before you. You review ledgers of grain delivered to the palace, of taxes owed by distant provinces, of gifts received from friendly sovereigns. You sign each sheet and press the signet ring into the sealing wax. Each signature confirms that you remain sovereign in matters of governance as well as ceremony. At the close of the day, you stand in the flicker of lantern light and bow to the empty hall as though the crowds are still present. You cross the floor and open the window to let the cool night air chase away the lingering warmth of candles. You gaze out at the turrets and battlements under a sky full of stars. You draw in a breath of moonlit breeze. Your ladies gather to prepare you for rest. You allow them to remove the layers of gown and spiritually cleanse your hands at a silver basin. You wash away the traces of oil and wine, of bread and candle smoke. You kneel in your night shift before your small bedside altar. You offer a final prayer of thanks for strength in facing the endless rituals of court. You whisper a vow to rise again tomorrow with the same poise and composure. You slip beneath the covers of your four-poster bed and close your eyes. You can feel the memory of every gesture, every bow, every precise word. You know that tomorrow, before the first light, you will awaken once more to take up the mantle of ceremony. You will walk the gardens, hold audiences, sign decrees, dine in state. You will master each ritual under watchful eyes. You would not last a day as medieval queen if you could not bear the weight of these endless acts with unwavering grace. You fall asleep in the hush of silk and stone, ready to greet the dawn once more. You wake before dawn with a weight in your belly that was not there a year ago. The morning light is pale and hesitant through the high windows. You press a hand to your abdomen and feel the steady pulse of new life mixed with the ache of growing flesh. Your ladies, waiting, stand quietly at the foot of your bed, ready to assist, yet careful not to disturb you. You slip from the silken sheets into a soft linen shift that caresses your skin more gently than the heavy gowns you wore in earlier months. Your lady, waiting, helps you into a robe of fine wool that wraps around your body with firm support. You cannot yet fasten the laces yourself. Each tug of fabric reminds you that you carry not only your own fragile frame, but also the future of the realm. The crown at your dressing table feels like a distant promise. You bow your head to steady yourself before you face the day's ceremonies. You make your way to the chapel on unsteady feet, every step a reminder of the life you bear. The corridor walls echo with your soft slippers. You lean on the marble rail outside the choir stalls and whisper a prayer for the health of the child and for the strength to endure what must come. The scent of burning tallow and incense drifts through the air and fills your chest with both comfort and longing. Morning Mass begins with the toll of the bell, long and deep. You kneel on a cushioned stool behind the altar rail. Each movement sends a fresh wave of pain through your back and hips. You cross yourself with deliberate care, mindful that a sudden jerk could send shock through your womb. You bow your head during the readings and recite the responses in a soft voice that trembles with gratitude for each moment of peace. After Mass, you retreat to your private chamber where a midwife awaits. She carries a small stool and a silver bowl of warm water scented with rose petals. You seat yourself before her and allow her to wash your hands and face. The water feels soothing on your skin. She speaks little, but when she does, her voice is firm as she reminds you of the remedies to ease your nausea and to strengthen your body. You swallow bitter draughts of herbal tonic, letting the pungent taste linger as a promise of relief. Your court physician arrives next with a parcel of herbs, parchment-bearing prayers, and a small gilded box of stones to wear against the belly to ward off threats. He inspects your pulse and examines your stomach, his trained hands moving with the precision of a sculptor. You feel a mixture of trust and fear, knowing that each measurement carries significance. He nods and offers a verdict that you are well enough for today's duties, but must rest before the moon's rise. You rise and walk with measured steps to the council chamber where courtiers await your presence. You sit upon the raised dais, the back of your chair carved with family crests. You feel the chair press against your growing hips. The chamberlain reads petitions of lesser importance while you listen and nod, careful that no blush of pain betrays your condition. You grant audience only for a short time, passing the seal of office to a trusted regent when the strain worsens. By midday, you retire again to your chamber. A gentle breeze blows through the lattice window and caresses your face. You stand at the sill, feeling the sun's warmth on your skin. You press both hands to your belly and murmur soft words to the child within, hoping that your voice will bring comfort and courage. You imagine the tiny fingers that will one day rule with justice and mercy. A small tray of broth and bread arrives, guarded by your ladies, so that only what you need is taken from the royal kitchen. You sip the broth slowly, tasting savory herbs that soothe your stomach. You bite the bread in small pieces, each crumb a source of both strength and sorrow, because you know that such simple sustenance must sustain you through long days of ceremony and expectation. In the afternoon, you walk with support through the terrace gardens to receive fresh air and sunshine. You pause by a fountain where marble figures of nymphs cradle water in their hands. You lean on the carved stone edge and watch the water flow, wishing that time would flow more gently for you. You close your eyes and let the sound of the fountain fill your mind as you gather your resolve to return to your duties. When your ladies guide you back inside, you feel the familiar knot of anticipation for the afternoon audiences. Your steps echo in the gallery as you prepare to meet noble petitioners. You settle into your seat on the dais again and receive presentations of loyalty from distant barons who have traveled only to ensure your well-being and the promise of a male heir. You listen as they praise your courage in bearing this heir. You offer them gracious smiles even as your heart trembles at the pressure in your core. Evening brings a brief banquet, served not in the great hall but in your private chambers to avoid the strain of pageantry. A single attendant carves tender meat and pours a small cup of crimson wine. You dine slowly, feeling the warmth of wine in your belly and the ache of each swallow. You savor each bite because you know that each morsel must not only nourish you, but also ease the weariness that comes with motherhood and monarchy entwined. After the meal, you kneel once more at the bedside altar. You cross yourself and recite prayers for a safe delivery. You whisper words of love and promise to the child you carry. You feel a swell of hope and fear mingled in your chest. You rise and allow your ladies to undress you for bed. They help you slip into a light gown of fine linen that gives your belly room to grow while still offering modest comfort. You settle into your four-poster bed, with the crown resting on a nearby velvet cushion. The soft light of a single candle flickers across the bedchamber as your ladies draw the curtains closed. You close your eyes and draw a deep breath, letting the warmth of the night embrace your aching body. You know that tomorrow you will awaken again before dawn to prayers, audiences, and counsel. You know that the expectation of a male successor will not pause for your weariness. Yet, in that knowledge, you find a fierce pride. You have been chosen to bear this heir and to shape the future of your dynasty. You have endured pain and fear for the sake of hope. You feel the child move within you, a tiny rhythm that echoes your own heartbeat. You drift into sleep under the hush of velvet and torchlight, ready to rise again and to bear the weight of motherhood and monarchy entwined. In that union lies your power and your trial. You would not last a day as a medieval queen if you could not endure both. You awake before dawn once more, your sleep fragile beneath the weight of expectation. The midwife's herbs have eased the worst of your morning sickness, but now a new discomfort stirs in your joints. You rise slowly and press a hand to your lower back, where the strain of growth makes every movement a negotiation of pain. Your ladies, wait silently at the foot of the bed. You accept the support of their arms as you step into a soft, mixed linen shift. Once dressed, you move to the window where the last stars fade from the sky. You watch the sky's pale blush and feel the first fluttering of the child within. You press your palm to the cool glass and murmur a petition for strength. You imagine the court already gathering, waiting for news of your health and the child's sex. You feel both tender hope and hardened resolve in equal measure. Your first task is to attend the mid-morning council, albeit in a modified form. You do not take your place on the dais today. Instead, you sit among your advisors in a shaded gallery, listening to reports of grain shipments and border skirmishes. Every time a courier arrives with news, you lean forward or bow your head slightly, letting the council know you remain engaged. You nod in agreement or lift a slender finger to signal a question. You speak in clear, concise tones, mindful that each word carries the weight of your unborn child's future. A herald arrives, with a letter sealed in green wax. You break the seal and read words that speak of an impending alliance through marriage of your eldest princess. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the strain in your belly. You reply with instructions to welcome the envoy and to prepare a feast befitting so great an announcement. You know that this alliance will secure peace and safety for your realm, but also that it ties your child's destiny to the ambitions of another court. At midday, you retreat to the private oratory. The chapel's cooling air offers a brief respite. You kneel once more before a small altar and recite the litany of saints for safe delivery and a male heir. You whisper each name as though entrusting the child to unseen protectors. You feel the habit's rough wool against your skin and think of the simple gown that once sufficed before the demands of royalty pressed upon you. You long for the spontaneity of a life without the crown's burden, yet you bow your head in acceptance of your sacred duty. After prayers, you find a small plate of boiled greens and fresh cheese waiting in your dressing chamber. You eat slowly, aware that every morsel must nourish your child's growing bones. You swallow each bite with gratitude and a silent vow to bear this air well. You feel the power of creation pulsing through your veins, even as your own strength ebbs and flows like the tide. In the early afternoon, you hold a private audience with the master of ceremonies and the palace physician. They present you with a plan for a gentle exercise regimen to ease your circulation and to prepare your body for childbirth. You agree to walk each morning in the gardens and to recline on cushioned benches while your ladies massage herbal oils into your legs. You nod when they remind you that rest is as vital as counsel and must not be sacrificed even for politics. You rise and move through the gallery to a bench beneath a carved stone arch where climbing roses bloom. Your ladies gather around with vials of lavender oil and finely woven blankets. You recline against embroidered cushions and allow their hands to knead warmth into your calves. You close your eyes and feel the tension melt away. The scent of flowers drifts through the air, mixing with the scent of heated stone. You let yourself surrender to this quiet moment, knowing that soon you must return to your duties. Late afternoon brings the ritual of public appearance. You stand on a small dais in the sunlit dais in the palace courtyard. The crowd of courtiers and commoners spreads before you, their faces full of hope and fear. You wear a gown of soft green silk, trimmed in gold that echoes the color of new leaves. A ring of pearls encircles your hair. You bear your hand upon your stomach in a practiced gesture of maternal grace. The people cheer for the promise of a future heir. You lift your hand in blessing and inhabit the role you have been born to occupy. As the sun dips low, you return indoors to the cool of the great hall. A private banquet awaits with soft meats, spiced stews, and fresh fruits. Unlike other feasts, this one focuses on simple flavors and nourishing broths designed for your condition. You taste each offering with care. You crack the shell of a walnut with slender fingers and let the oil flow across your tongue. You sip a cup of warm mead infused with fennel seed and feel the warmth spread through your belly. Before the last light fades, you steal a moment alone on the balcony above the courtyard. You grasp the stone railing and look out at the rose garden below. The night air is soft and fragrant. You close your eyes and lift your face to the sky. You feel the child's heartbeat in time with yours. You whisper words of promise that you will protect this air, guide this air, and one day surrender your very life if it must be given to ensure the child's future. You return to your chamber for the final rite of rest. The midwife kneels to feel the child's position through your shifting gown. She assures you that the baby is well and resting. You offer thanks and slip into the soft linen shift that will be your comfort through the night. Your ladies draw the curtains and light a single lamp beside your bed. You kneel on the thick rug and recite your final prayers in a voice softer than a whisper. You lie upon the bed, your fingers tracing the air above your stomach. You feel a quiet strength in that motion. You would not last a day as a medieval queen if you could not bear the weight of expectation and the sharp pangs of fear and hope entwined. You taste peace in this moment of waiting, and you close your eyes, ready to greet another dawn as mother and monarch in one. You enter the council chamber before sunrise, and pause at the threshold. Flickering candlelight casts long shadows across stone walls, etched with the seals of former rulers. Courtiers and ministers sit in hushed clusters around a polished oak table. Their eyes flick toward you as you glide into the room wearing a gown of deep crimson. You offer no greeting or flourish until you reach the head of the table. A single lamp burns at your elbow. Smoke curls in the air and carries the sharp scent of wax. You take a seat on the elaborately carved chair that marks your office. Instantly, the room stills. You fold your hands and let the silence press in. A deep voice breaks the hush. The Chancellor rises and unrolls a parchment bearing news from the western marches. He speaks of border skirmishes and shifting loyalties. You listen without betraying surprise or fear. As he reads, you survey the faces around the table. A duke from the north tightens his grip on a jeweled cane. His eyes flick to the chancellor and then to you. A lady in silver, trimmed velvet, leans into her neighbor and murmurs. You hear the faintest hint of laughter. Jealousy simmers in this room. Every soul here covets a scrap of power or a hint of favor. You remind yourself that a single misstep could tip the balance of intrigue into open conflict. The Duke stands and bows low before you. He presents a letter sealed in black wax. You break the seal with a careful twist and read the words that accuse a rival noble of plotting to undermine your authority. You raise an eyebrow and meet the Duke's gaze. He shrugs with an air of innocence. You press your lips together and slide the letter aside. You will investigate its claims later. For now, you must keep the peace. A clerk passes around small vessels of spiced wine. You lift a goblet in graceful arcs. You drink only a sip and let the rest cool on the table. You know that each cup might conceal poison. A court fool is said to have tasted the wine first, then disappeared in the night. You trust only your closest confidants to prepare your meals. A single drop of arsenic could bring ruin to all you have built. The Chancellor now speaks of a meeting with envoys from a distant kingdom. They seek an alliance, but bring demands that could cost your realm dearly. You tilt your head and ask the Chancellor to read the terms again. You choose each word of your reply as though it were a dagger aimed at an invisible foe. You make no promise. Instead, you offer a measured response that balances diplomacy and caution. A hush falls as a sturdy knight enters bearing a sealed box. He bows before you and places it on the table. Within lies a gift from a neighboring prince who once wooed you with florid verse. You recall his affections turned sour when another lady caught his eye. You open the box to reveal a single rose carved from ivory. You run your fingertip along its smooth petals and feel the chill of betrayal in your heart. You rise and step around the table. Your gown's train brushes the floor like a silent river of silk. You bow to each member of the council. You remind them that service to the realm demands loyalty above all else. You speak of unity and justice, and warn against the poison of envy. Your voice is steady, but carries an edge that chills the room. You return to your seat, and let the quiet swallow every spark of dissent. As the council breaks, you remain at the table, gathering the dispatches and seals with calm efficiency. You feel the weight of every secret plotted here. You know that corridors will hum with whispered plots and hidden schemes by the time the sun rises fully. You fold each parchment and seal it with your signet ring. You will read them by candlelight this evening when the halls are empty and the moon sits heavy in the sky. Leaving the chamber, you pass through a tapestry-lined corridor where courtiers linger in small gatherings. Their voices drop when they see you approach. You nod once and move on without a word. You climb the narrow staircase to your private solar. Here you lock the door and light a single lamp. You spread the documents on your desk and stare at the names and seals. You trace each signature with a fingertip. Each hour of daylight will bring its own rituals and audiences. But now you face the labyrinth of intrigue in solitude. You sip a cup of warm milk infused with valerian root to steady your mind. You lean back in your chair and let the lamp's light flare across the walls. You know that even royalty cannot escape plots born of envy and ambition. You steel yourself for the endless games of power. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. You feel the crown's weight upon your brow, even though it rests in your solar. You feel the chill of danger and the thrill of control. You remind yourself that you would not last a day as a medieval queen if you could not navigate these waters of suspicion and peril. You rise and prepare for the next challenge, determined that neither poison nor betrayal will claim you or your realm. You descend from the council chamber into the bustling corridor where the midday banquet is already being set out. Tables of carved oak line the hall, draped in heavy cloth and laid with gleaming plates of silver. Servants move with quiet precision as they place tureens of stew and platters of roast game. You pause at the threshold to smooth your gown and lift your chin so that the court can see the line of pearls at your neck. A page offers you a goblet of spiced wine. You accept it with a slight nod, lifting it to your lips and tasting the warmth before taking your first measured sip. The hall fills with a murmur of voices as nobles settle into their places. You sit at the head of the table beneath a carved canopy. Each seat along the dais is occupied by a favorite or a potential rival. You note how the Duke from the western lands avoids the Count from the eastern marches, their eyes flicking toward one another with thinly veiled hostility. You lean forward slightly, gesturing for the first course to be served. The steward places a bowl of pottage before you. You eat with graceful precision, each spoonful timed to set a tranquil pace. Halfway through the meal, a commotion stirs at the far end of the table. A baron's son has insulted a visiting bishop by mispronouncing his title. You raise a hand for silence and let your gaze settle on the youth. He flushes with shame as the bishop's servants rise in outraged protest. You speak calmly, reminding all that courtesy must be upheld in your presence. You offer a gentle apology on the young man's behalf and request that he carry the bishop's personal letter to his quarters later. The hall bows in relief, and the young man exhales, his posture relaxing under your pardon. After the main course, you rise to walk among the guests. You step between tables with a servant holding a tray of sweetmeats and fresh fruit. Each bite must be shared with those you greet. A cup of elderflower cordial is pressed into your hand by a lady known for her sharp tongue. You sip and note a bitter edge beneath the sweet. Your mind registers the warning. You smile and applaud her for her generosity before passing the cordial to the chamberlain for testing. The servants carry the cup away without a word. As the feast concludes, you dismiss the commons and escort your closest advisors into the private solar. There, you close the door and draw the curtains. A single lamp burns on the desk where the sealed report from your spymaster awaits. Your steward approaches and kneels to present the envelope. You break the seal and read by the lamplight. The report details a plot to replace your wine with a potent toxin during the evening's next banquet. The conspirators include a disgraced noble seeking vengeance and a servant with a hidden loyalty. You feel the blood drain from your cheeks, but steady your breath. You stand in motion for your steward to summon only the most trusted companions. In the hush of the solar, you outline a plan to trap the traitors. You will host a small supper this evening in the library, then invite the suspects under guise of a private audience. You instruct your guard captain to place extra guards in discreet positions. You will taste the wine yourself. At dusk, you enter the library. Shelves of leather-bound volumes line the walls, and a single lamp lights a small table set with 2 goblets. You seat yourself and gesture for the Duke and the servant to join you. They obey with pale faces, unaware of your knowledge of their conspiracy. You pour wine into each goblet, swirling the liquid to catch the glint of lamplight. You raise your own to your lips, and watch as the Duke follows suit while the servant waits. The Duke takes a sip, and his eyes widen in shock. He chokes, coughing into his hand. The servant pales and gulps at his own goblet before realizing he cannot drink. You rise calmly and step behind the table. You reveal that your cup was tested minutes ago in the kitchen, with no ill effect. You accuse the servant by name. He falters and flees for the door, but your guards seize him. The Duke kneels, begging forgiveness. You consider the heavy silence that follows. In the aftermath, you order the conspirators held for trial. You summon the council and read the names of those who sought your downfall. You decree that such treachery must be punished swiftly and justly. The court bows in solemn agreement. You dismiss for the night, knowing that any spark of rebellion will now be extinguished. You return to your private chamber, crown in hand. You set it on the bedside table and kneel at the small altar. You pray for guidance and for the safety of your realm. You taste the lingering warmth of the wine still on your lips. You feel the gravity of power and the poison of jealousy entwined in every breath. You rise and slip beneath the blankets, ready to face another day of intrigue and danger under the weight of the silver circlet. You awake before dawn in a vast imperial bedchamber that still feels foreign to your senses. The tapestry of gold and purple drapes around a canopy bed heavy with layers of silk. You sit at the edge and press a hand to your chest, feeling the silk shift against your skin. Your wedding gown lies folded on a nearby chaise, a reminder of the day you pledged your life to an emperor you barely knew. Your ladies, in waiting, stand by, with fresh robes and scented water, but you stare at the gilded mirror instead, tracing the curve of your face that now bears the title of Empress. A gentle knock at the door signals the arrival of your chamberlain. He offers a small cup of watered wine and a bowl of wheat porridge spiced with honey. You drink and taste the sweetness, tinged with bitterness. You know that every crumb you eat must sustain you through the long hours of court ritual. You swallow and rise to dress for the day's first audience in the imperial hall. Your cloak is a heavy velvet, embroidered with the imperial eagle. It settles on your shoulders like a mantle of duty. You step through the chamber door and into a long corridor lined with marble columns. Each pillar bears an imperial coat of arms, reminding you that your very presence here is a statement of alliance between two great houses. You walk with measured steps, mindful of the eyes that follow your every move. At the end of the corridor, the great hall awaits. It stretches 100 paces in length, and the ceiling soars high above, painted with scenes of conquest and divine right. Courtiers stand in rigid lines along the walls. You enter and pause on the dais where your husband, the emperor, sits upon a throne of ivory and gold. He rises when you step forward, bowing his head in a gesture of respect that feels more like a reminder of your place than an expression of affection. You kneel and offer a curtsy that leaves your back aching. You rise and take your seat on a smaller throne beside his. The chamberlain announces the arrival of envoys from distant provinces. Each envoy presents gifts of ivory, silks, and precious gems. You acknowledge them with a nod and a soft word of thanks in the imperial tongue. You feel the weight of every glare directed toward you, as if each noble wonders whether you deserve this marriage or whether you might somehow betray your homeland. The emperor listens to reports of border skirmishes and tax revenues. You follow his lead in offering counsel when asked, aware that your opinions carry weight only because of your birth. You note that the Chancellor gives you a quick glance whenever a question is asked of you, measuring whether your answer will align with imperial policy or expose your naivety. You choose your words carefully, drawing on the training you received before your marriage. You remind yourself that you are here to strengthen the alliance, not to prove your own brilliance. After the audience, you retreat to the imperial gardens. Terraced lawns stretch by glass greenhouses and marble fountains. You walk past rows of citrus trees and roses perfumed with dew. You feel the breeze, a gift of freedom for a moment. Yet you cannot forget that you are here as part of a dynastic bargain. A letter from your family in your homeland lies hidden in your private desk. You have not dared to open it since your departure. To read it might betray your divided loyalties or bring sorrow you cannot bear. In the afternoon, you attend a feast in the private dining hall. A long table is set with tureens of spiced meats, simmered fish, and fresh fruits imported from faraway lands. You taste each flavor as if it might be your last chance to experience the pleasures of home. Your ladies laugh softly at stories from court life, but you force a smile. The emperor sits at the center, praising each dish before you are allowed to taste it. You feel the power of his position in every glance he casts your way, as though you are both his consort and his prize. When the feast ends, you move to the imperial apartments for your afternoon lesson in statecraft. A tutor appears with a stack of scrolls and an atlas of the realm. He instructs you on the names of distant provinces and the lineage of rival claimants. You trace each border with your fingertip and memorize the alliances that bind the empire together. You know that one mispronounced name could cause offense or spark a feud. You repeat each term until your tongue aches. Before sunset, you attend the evening vespers in the palace chapel. Candlelight flickers on the faces of courtiers who kneel before a high altar of silver and lapis. You follow the service with prayers for stability and for the child you hope to bear, the heir who will unite your two lineages. You cross yourself with solemn reverence. The hush of the chapel calms your restless mind even as you feel the watchful eyes of the court upon you. When the service ends, the emperor takes your hand and leads you back through silent corridors to your private suite. You pass guards posted at every archway, each a reminder that this palace is both fortress and prison. He pauses and kisses your hand in a gesture of affection that feels oddly tender in this world of ceremony. You let him lead you to a small table where a light supper awaits. You eat quietly, sharing confidences that feel like contraband in a marriage founded on politics. Finally, you slip into the bedchamber that will be your refuge until tomorrow's dawn. The emperor stands at the window, gazing at the last light on distant spires. You watch his silhouette framed by the sky. You know that each day you will rise before dawn to serve as his consort and as the imperial alliance incarnate. Your cradle of power is also your gilded cage. Yet in this burden you find a strange pride in being chosen for this role. You slip beneath the covers and close your eyes, ready to face another day as pawn and princess in the greatest dynastic game of the age. You rise before dawn once more, the rose water still clinging to your skin from the night's last bath. Your ladies in waiting stand ready with the layers of court attire you have learned to don with quiet efficiency. Today their task feels heavier than before. Each gown, each jeweled clasp binds you more tightly to an alliance you negotiated at a council far from home. You step into the grand corridor that leads to the audience chamber. The walls are lined with portraits of ancestors who forged alliances through marriage and conquest. You pause before a painting of the first emperor, your husband's forebear, whose sharp gaze seems to measure your every breath. You steady yourself, reminding your heart that you are here by design and by duty, not by accident of birth. In the audience chamber, courtiers gather in stately clusters. Foreign envoys and domestic nobles mingle beneath lofty arches. You enter at the head of a procession, your train carried by a page, so that no thread brushes the marble floor. Every eye turns toward you. You offer a gentle nod to the Duke, whose lands adjoin your homeland, and whose allegiance hinges on your union. He bows so deeply his chest nearly touches the ground. You offer him a faint smile and allow him to rise in peace. The Chancellor reads the latest reports of rebellions on the far frontier. You listen with calm attention, sensing the frail loyalty of semi-independent lords. Your husband's hand rests on the arm of his throne. His eyes flick to yours for counsel. You choose your words with care, reminding the Chancellor of the benefits of reconciliation over force. Your voice is clear and measured. Each syllable carries the weight of imperial unity and the promise of peace, yet conceals the caution of a foreign bride whose ties to her family remain strong in secret. After the audience, you withdraw to a side chamber with your ladies and a few trusted advisors. You smile and laugh with them for a moment, the gestures as practiced as the gowns they adjust. Then you close the doors and slip into private conversation. You speak of the fragile peace in the borderlands and of your homeland's own troubles that could flare into conflict unless managed carefully. Your aide records every nuance so that your husband may govern with full understanding. You cloak your words in courtesy, but you convey your loyalty to both realms. At midday, a banquet is held in your honor. Dishes of honeyed venison and candied figs appear beneath silver covers. You taste each course with graceful slowness, reserving your opinions until the emperor asks which delicacy pleases you most. You name the figs for their sweet memory of gardens at home, You note how the spice is milder here, and how the honey is darker. The chamber echoes with polite appreciation, and envy glimmers in the eyes of those who long to influence your palate for their own gain. A foreign princess arrives unexpectedly, under the guise of friendship. She curtsies deeply and presents you with a brooch of carved jade. You accept it with grace, knowing this gift is more than courtesy. It is a token of alliance among daughters of state. You speak with her in the common tongue until she departs, then lean close to your ladies to remark on the princess's subtle attempt to sway you toward her father's interests. Your ladies murmur agreement in low tones. You will report this slight turn of loyalty to your husband's ear before evening. In the afternoon you attend a meeting of the imperial matrons. You cross the palace gardens to the pavilion of carved marble, where tapestries show scenes of peace and plenty. You sit among other noble wives and widows whose own marriages served as alliances long before yours. You nod and smile as they recount their experiences. You offer your own account of life at court, careful to emphasize your duty and humility rather than personal ambition. You treasure the solidarity of these women, bound by similar burdens, and you find comfort in their shared laughter at the absurdities of court protocol. At Vespers you return to the palace chapel. The candles glow softly, and the choir sings of mercy and guidance. You find a spot in the back row and kneel, pressing your hands into the cool stone floor. You feel the weight of your title and the hope it carries for two kingdoms. You pray for wisdom, for a son who will unite these lands, and for the strength to endure the intrigues that swirl beyond these walls. You taste incense on your tongue and feel your soul steadied by the hush of the sacred space. After the service, you walk the cloister with your ladies. The moon gleams on the roof tiles and a cool breeze ruffles the ends of your cloak. You pause at a fountain where marble cherubs cradle water. You dip your fingers into the basin and trace a cross in the air, a private ritual of hope and remembrance. You recall your family's quiet prayers for your safe return. You whisper a vow that your child will know both your homeland and this empire with equal love. Dinner is served in the emperor's private dining room, a small gathering of only your closest confidants and advisors. The table holds a simple meal of roasted fish, fresh fruit, and honeyed nuts. You eat in companionable silence, the intimacy of the gathering a rare gift. You allow yourself a moment of ease as you speak of lighter topics: the harvest festival in your homeland, the music of your youth, the laughter of children running in the fields. You watch the faces around you soften under the lamplight. When the meal ends, you slip away to your private quarters. Your ladies fan you with silk fans and draw a warm bath scented with lavender and rose. You sink into the water and let the heat soothe your aching back and swelling ankles. You close your eyes and let the day's burdens drift away for a moment, replaced by the simple comfort of warm water against tired skin. Emerging from the bath, you wrap yourself in a soft linen shift and kneel once more at the bedside altar. You offer thanks for the alliances you uphold, for the Emperor's trust, and for the strength to bear your duties day after day. You whisper your hopes for a healthy child and a lasting peace. You lie on your four-poster bed and feel the canopy close around you like a shield. You remember every step of the day: the audience at dawn, the secret council, the banquet of diplomacy, the sisterhood of foreign matrons, the hush of the chapel, the private laughter at dinner. You know that tomorrow will bring more ceremonies, more delicate negotiations, and the same burden of a dynastic pawn who must carry both power and sacrifice in equal measure. You close your eyes and drift into sleep, ready to rise before dawn once again under the weight of an emperor's name, a promise of union, and the hope of future heir who will inherit the legacies of two great houses. You wake to the sound of distant coughing, echoing down the corridor outside your chamber. The dawn light through the narrow window is pale and wan, as if weakened by the sickness that has settled over the city. You rise from your bed and wrap a thin wool cloak around your shoulders. The cold stone floors chill your feet. You step into the hallway and see a guard staggering toward you, his face drawn and weary, his tabard clinging to his ribs. You reach out, steady him for a moment, and note the dark bruise beneath his arm where he has tried to suppress a feverish cough. Below, in the great hall, the servants move like ghosts among empty tables. Once piled high with game and roasted fowl, the boards now bear only scattered crumbs and the dregs of rancid oil. You step carefully through the gloom, guided by a single torch, and make your way to the kitchens where a handful of cooks huddle over the last embers of a dying fire. A cauldron hangs above the coals. You dip a spoon into the thin broth within. The liquid is murky with congealed fat and specks of barley that have swollen beyond recognition. You raise the spoon to your lips, tasting the salt and bitterness, and swallow. This meager ration must last until the fields beyond the walls yield grain again, if they yield at all. A low moan draws you into the stables where the palace horses have long since been slaughtered for food. You hear the rustle of straw and find a stable hand kneeling beside a mangy mule, its flank pressed to the cold stone. The animal's eyes are dull. The man holds a bucket of watery mash to its lips. Each breath the mule takes is a wheeze. You press a hand to its head and murmur a blessing. Then you turn away. Even the beasts prized for war and ceremony are not spared in this time of need. You climb the spiral stair to the battlements to inspect the guards. The wall walk is strewn with straw and a few blankets left from last night's vigil. Soldiers stand at intervals, their helmets tilted back so they can rest against the wall. Their mail clinks faintly when they move. You approach one who leans against the crenellation, clutching a wooden cup. You see, the empty cup is his only possession, besides the rough cloak at his back. His cheeks are hollow, his eyes sunk. He offers you the cup, empty once more, as though you might fill it from your own stores. You cannot, but you bow your head in gratitude and whisper a word of thanks for his steadfast watch. Below, the city beyond the moat lies dark and abandoned, save for the bodies that line the streets. You lean forward and look for signs of life, but see only the still shapes of the dead. A rat scuttles across a corpse, pausing to sniff at the vacant mouth. You close your eyes and turn away, focusing on the duty that remains within these walls. You step back inside, the weight of fear and guilt heavy on your heart. The palace infirmary lies at the east wing. You enter a low vaulted chamber lit by a single brazier. Cots line the walls, each occupied by someone too weak to rise. You see the queen's cousin, her face waxen, her breathing shallow as a sigh. You kneel and press a bowl of warm broth to her lips. She sips with trembling hands. Her feverish eyes meet yours in silent thanks. You brush damp hair from her forehead and grasp her hand. You vow that no sacrifice is too great to tend your kin in this time of plague. A priest steps forward to offer last rites to a collapsed knight. You stand and let the words wash over you. The knight's armor has been stripped away, and his tunic is stained and ragged. He coughs once, and his breath rattles in his throat. You feel the tremor of his life ebbing away. You watch as the priest sprinkles holy water on his brow. You cannot move. You close your eyes and pray for a miracle that seems farther away with each toll of the chapel bell. Hunger gnaws at you with every breath. You make your way back to your private chambers, where a single crust of bread and a cup of watered wine await. You break the crust, its edge hard as stone, and let the crumbs fall onto the wooden table. You eat slowly, savoring every grain. You sip the wine and feel its warmth chase the chill from your blood. You know this will be your only meal until nightfall. You hold the empty cup and offer silent gratitude for what little you have. Afternoon brings a summons to the council room, but only your most trusted advisors attend. The hall is nearly empty. Candle stubs gutter on the table. You listen as the chamberlain unmasks the latest threat. The city's granaries have been sealed to prevent hoarding, but now supplies dwindle to nothing. Even the servants have begun to vanish. slipping into the streets to scavenge what they can. You ask what remains of the palace storehouses. The steward's answer is grim. Less than half of the winter reserves remain. You rise from your seat, wincing at the dull ache in your side from the chill air. You stride to the window and look down at the moat. The water is still green with algae, the drawbridge raised against any who might try to force their way in. You turn back to your advisors. You command that every last scrap of grain be distributed evenly, that each soldier and servant receive a ration. You warn that anyone hoarding or stealing must face the full weight of the law, even in this time of desperation. A murmur runs through the room, but no one dares to challenge you. You feel the eyes of the council upon you, hoping your resolve will hold where theirs falters. You set your jaw and declare that you will lead by example. You will share the same bread and water as your people. You will not hide in comfort while those who defend you starve. A young page arrives to guide you back to the private chambers. You follow him through darkened corridors lined with empty torches that have long since burned down. You spot rats weaving through the cracks in the walls. A chill wind trails through an unbarred window in the next room. You pause and press a hand to the cold stone. You remember that you once believed palace walls offered safety. Now they feel like a cage, sealing you with disease and hunger rather than protecting you from them. In your chamber, you remove the heavy cloak and settle at your writing desk. You pick up a quill and dip it into ink that smells of rancid metal. You write orders to dispatch emissaries to nearby allies, to send messengers across the mountains in the hope of relief. You seal each dispatch with your signet ring, praying that help arrives before the walls close in completely. Night falls, and a lantern is placed beside your bed. You lie beneath the thin blankets, your stomach empty and your body bruised by the cold. You hear the cough of the guard still standing watch at the gate. You hear the distant clang of pickaxes as someone buries the dead beyond the ramparts. You feel the weight of fear and despair pressing on your chest. You close your eyes and whisper a vow to survive. You promise to bear the burden of famine and plague with every ounce of your strength. You remember that even as a queen, you are made of flesh and bone, vulnerable to the same sufferings as your people. You resolve that if you can endure this trial, your reign will be stronger for it. As sleep finally claims you, you taste the hollow ache of hunger and the bitter sting of loss. You feel the walls around you damp with fear and death, yet you also feel a quiet flame of determination glowing within, a promise that you will not surrender to the darkness. You will wake again before dawn, with a cup of thin broth and a crust to share, ready to lead your people through plague and famine behind these castle walls. You rise before the dawn bell again, feeling the emptiness in your gut as a constant reminder of your people's suffering. The palace corridors are hushed now, servants long since dispersed in search of scraps beyond the walls. You cloak yourself in a simple woolen mantle and slip into the courtyard, where the guard captain awaits you beside a rough wooden table. On it lie bowls carved from hollowed wood and a single loaf of last week's bread, hard and dry. You join the guard captain in distributing rations. Each soldier steps forward in turn, his gaunt face lit by pale lantern glow. You scoop a handful of broken crust into each bowl and pour water from a heavy jar. Some men bow their heads in gratitude. Others stare with hollow eyes that have seen too much. You offer each a few quiet words of encouragement. You know the bowl you hand them will carry them only until the moon rises, and still you press on. After the guard is gone, you return to the kitchens. A handful of cooks stands around a low hearth where embers smolder beneath a battered cauldron. The cooked roots they offer have been boiled longer than they should, yet no one dares to waste even a single scrap. You stir the mash slowly, stirring only for the sake of habit. The smoky steam burns your throat. You lift a spoon to your lips, tasting the grit of burnt wood. You swallow and carry the cauldron to a side table, then turn to fetch empty bowls for the palace staff. In the grand hall you find the stewards who manage the last stores of grain. A month ago the sacks brimmed to overflowing. Today, only one remains. You kneel beside it and stroke the coarse burlap. You ask how many days it will last under current ration. The steward's brow furrows as he counts servants and soldiers. He dares not voice the answer. You nod and issue fresh orders. From now on, no crumb may be spared for courtly luxury. Every grain must feed the hungry. Your next patrol takes you along the inner wall where rats swarm through cracks in the mortar. You recall that disease rides upon their fur. You clutch your cloak tight and press your lips together. No matter how you steel yourself, there is a revulsion that cannot be denied. You order the guard to burn straw and set traps to curb the plague among the vermin. Every fire you light sends smoke curling into the night air. You hope its sting drives the rats into open courtyards where men may seize them. Late that afternoon, you visit the infirmary again. The wood door creaks as you push it open. You enter a dim room lit by a single lamp. 4 beds line the walls. Each holds a victim of fever. You stand by the first and press a cool cloth to his forehead. The man's eyes flutter open. He mouths your name as though you were a saint. You offer a sip of thin broth from a wooden spoon. He swallows, then closes his eyes. You step to the next bed and repeat the act. You know the broth will do little more than comfort, but comfort too is a gift. In a corner, you find a healer mixing poultices of herbs. She looks up at you with haunted eyes. She hands you a small vial of tincture and urges you to taste it. You hesitate, but do as she asks. The bitter liquid bites your tongue and warms your gut. She smiles faintly as you swallow. She tells you it may ease your own stomach's turmoil. A queen must taste each remedy herself, lest servants poison her under cover of plague. You hide your relief as the heat spreads in your chest. As dusk gathers, you stand on the battlements once more. You peer through a slit toward the desolate fields below. No ploughman sows the earth. The harvest rotted in the fields when the plague struck the villages first. You imagine the hungry spectres beyond these walls. You turn back to the guard posts where a handful of men stand watch. A few lean on their spears, too weak for proper duty. You send 2 of your personal pages to bring blankets for them and a fresh ration of broth. When you return to your private chambers, you find a letter pressed beneath the door. It is from a distant duke, whose lands were spared the worst of famine. He offers a small convoy of grain in exchange for your hand in marriage to one of his grandsons. You know this offer may save lives, yet you also know it would shift power in ways you cannot control. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. You will write your reply at dawn. That night the palace falls silent beneath a sky, heavy with stars. You enter the chapel alone. The stone walls are cold, and the candles flicker in welcome. You kneel before the altar, your knees protesting the chill. You offer a prayer for the souls lost to the plague, and for the survivors who still cling to life. You ask for guidance in the decisions you must make before the sun rises. You awaken before the dawn bell for the 3rd time this week. Your stomach rumbles with hunger, but you dress without hesitation. You step into the corridor and find your ladies gathering bowls and blankets for the guard and the ailing. You bless them for their loyalty and whisper instructions to carry relief to every post. You stand by as a page summons the guard captain. Together you plan a route for the day's distribution. You walk the halls once more, handing out barley stew, blankets, and tinctures. Some who see your efforts bow low. Others must swallow their pride to receive your aid. You catch the eye of a noblewoman who once scorned you for your foreign birth. Today she stands shivering and appreciative. You offer your hand in compassion. She bows again, tears in her eyes. You smile quietly, knowing pity alone cannot feed her kin, but that mercy may bind her loyalty. Midday brings a rare gift of steam rising over a cauldron of vegetable soup. You taste the broth and count the turnips and carrots. You thank the cook for stretching the stores so far. You share the bowl with a wounded knight who cannot stand, kneeling beside his pallet. He lifts the spoon and lets it spill on his tunic. You capture each drop with bread and offer him the cloth of your glove to wipe his beard. You press your hand to his shoulder and draw strength from his gratitude. When the plague bell tolls again, you retreat to the infirmary for another round of ministrations. The lamps burn low now. You work by their glow, offering tinctures and poultices to those who will scarcely survive the night. You stand at the bedside of a child whose fever blazes like a furnace. You press cool water to her lips and carry her small hand in yours. She smiles weakly and squeezes your finger. You bow your head against the flickering lamp, tears stinging your own eyes. Finally, the dusk of starvation and death gives way to a new dawn of sacrifice and hope. You stand on the wall walk, watching guard and servant carry water and grain. You know the worst of the plague may soon pass, but the damage of famine will linger. You vow to rebuild the granaries and to plant seeds in the ravaged fields. You vow to remember every face you have seen in the infirmary and to honor the souls lost with a memorial in the chapel. You descend to your chambers and write your reply to the Duke's offer of grain. You accept his aid, but with conditions that bind his house to yours in service to the realm's recovery. You seal the letter with your signet ring and send it by the fastest rider. You feel a fragile hope bloom in your heart. Perhaps soon the walls will hold not only plague and hunger, but the promise of renewal. You close your journal with a steady hand, determined that whatever trials remain will be met with the same resolve you have shown these long nights. You stand before the great mirror in your private chamber, as daylight pours through high-arched windows. Your ladies, waiting bustle around you, pulling ribbons and lace through folds of silk and velvet. You feel the weight of every layer pressing upon your shoulders and waist. The bodice is boned stiffly to force your posture straight and proud. You close your eyes for a moment and draw a steady breath. Even a small tremor would betray the effort you take to appear composed and perfect. A gown of sapphire blue silk is drawn across your shoulders. It clings at the arms and flickers in the light, like water. The sleeves are slashed with pale satin that reveals a glimpse of embroideries beneath. You feel the rough edge of each sleeve's hem brush against your cheeks as you turn your head. A seamstress smooths the fabric down your back and pins it so that no wrinkle remains. You bow your head in thanks, but feel as though you wear iron instead of silk. Next, the layers of undergarment must be tightened. A linen shift lies beneath the gown. It is soaked from the morning's sweat and the strenuous effort to maintain the strict corset that binds your torso. The corset is stiff and scented faintly with lavender to disguise the heat of your skin. You feel the laces tug at your sides with each shallow breath. Your ladies tug and knot until the corset cinches in at your waist, forcing your spine straight even as your ribs ache. Earrings of silver and sapphire hang at your ears. Each gem catches the light and casts a cool glow on your cheeks. You feel the weight of the metal, a reminder that for every token of beauty, you bear a burden of expectation. A pearl necklace is draped across your collarbone. It must sit just so between the folds of your gown. You tilt your head so that the court jeweler can adjust the length. Each movement sends a ripple through the silk and a prickle of discomfort under your arms. Your hair has been pinned into a high coil. Tiny jewels sparkle among the braids. You feel each pin probing your scalp. You dare not shift for fear a gem might loosen. The mirror shows a perfect reflection of regal calm. Yet beneath the surface of that calm, you feel the heat of 1,000 torches and the sting of a summer sun blazing through open windows. A page arrives with a small fan made of white feathers. You lift it and let it brush across your cheeks. The cool touch eases the flush rising in your skin as you prepare to meet the court. You take a slow breath and feel the silk shift against your chest. Even a single drop of perspiration could betray the effort you have made to look flawless. Your ladies fall into line behind you as you leave the chamber. You walk through halls lined with marble and gold. Each step is measured so that the skirts of your gown ripple in perfect waves. Courtiers bow as you pass. You return each bow with a slight nod. Every face in the corridor watches your every movement. You sense their admiration, but also their envy. You wonder whether they see the steel corset beneath the silk, or only the glitter of jewels. You reach the hall of audiences. Torches line the walls, and the floor is polished until it gleams. Your ladies draw back so that you may step forward alone. You feel the space open before you like a stage. You take a small step onto the dais. The courtiers gaze up at you with expectation shining in their eyes. You lift your chin and let the sapphire gown catch the torchlight once more. A herald proclaims your arrival. You offer a smooth curtsy, feeling the gown shift across the floor. You stand and let the hush fall over the gathering. You listen to the first petition, as though you have slept through hours of preparation. Yet you have not known a moment's peace since dawn. Every smile you give, every gesture you make must be perfect. A nobleman bows at your feet and presents a jewel from his estates. You smile and accept it with grace. You feel the silk press against your steadying palms as you hold the gift aloft. Then you place it in a small, jeweled box that hangs at your side. Each motion carries the weight of centuries of ceremony. Heat floods the hall as more torches flare. You stifle a cough and press a hand to the small of your back. The corset bites into your flesh. You remind yourself to breathe shallowly. A deep breath would set teeth of whalebone grinding into your ribs. You betray no discomfort as you address the assembly with a calm voice. The sun climbs overhead, and the daylight shifts to gold. A window behind you frames the sky in perfect blue. A breeze drifts through and stirs the sleeves of your gown. You feel the fabric tremble like a leaf. You hold the moment, your crown nestled securely upon your brow. You have practiced this poise for weeks. You have learned every protocol. Yet you know that once you leave this hall, you may never again feel the silk against your skin without the reminder of what you must endure to rule. When the audience ends, you descend from the dais. Each step down the polished floor must be precise. You let the fans held by pages cool your cheeks as you walk back through the corridor. You feel the scrub of silk against worn marble and the hum of voices rising behind you. You allow yourself a moment to release a breath you did not know you held. Your private chamber awaits. As the doors close, you lean against the frame and let your body sag. You slip out of the gowns and corset, feeling every muscle relax. You stand in a shift that is damp and sticky from the sweat you could not avoid. You cross to the mirror and study your reflection. The jewels have gone, but the lines at the corners of your eyes remain. The color of the fabric has left slight stains on your skin. You close your eyes and run your fingers along your cheek, tasting salt and makeup. You step to the wash basin and pour cool water over your wrists. You let the water trickle over your collarbone and down your arms. The chill soothes the heat. You dab at the damp shifts with a soft cloth. You sink onto a stool and let your ladies slip soft trousers of linen beneath your shift. You shrug off the outer layers and feel raw relief at the cool air on your flesh. You dress in a simple gown of unadorned cotton. It hangs loose and gives you room to breathe. You untie the corset and let it fall away. You roll the stays into a bundle and set them aside. You feel your ribs expand and your breath deepen. You cross to the window and open the shutters wide. The fresh air rushes in and whips at your hair. You drink the scent of grass and earth. You close your eyes and taste freedom. In this solitude, you recall the day's appearance. The silken jewels will be needed again at twilight. You will don the sapphire gown again. You will rehearse every gesture and glance. You will stand upon the dais and bear the weight of every eye. Yet in this small moment, you know that beneath the finery you remain flesh and bone, capable of sweat and ache. You remind yourself that perfection is a performance, and that you alone know its cost. You draw a long breath and face the day's remainder in simple cloth, carrying both freedom and the memory of silk against your skin. You enter the council chamber before dawn and find the benches half empty. A handful of courtiers linger in shadow near the tapestries that line the walls. Their faces twist with envy and fear. You feel the tension coil in the air like a snake waiting to strike. You tread softly so that no sound betrays your presence. You know that once word spreads of your arrival, Every whisper will pause, and every eye will turn. The first to greet you is the Duke, who once stood at your side in public ritual. His smile is too wide, and his eyes too bright. You recall how he praised your wisdom just last week. Now you sense the barbs beneath his words. He speaks of the minister who fell disgraced before dawn, accused of treason. You nod and ask for details. His tale drips with relish. He names names of those who plotted the minister's downfall. You listen, heart steel, knowing that loyalty shifts like sand in this court. You move to the dais where your throne waits. The chamber fills as courtiers slip back into place. You sit and fold your hands. A high lady of the realm stands before you holding a sealed note. She claims it was meant for your private counsel. You break the seal. The letter speaks of a secret liaison between a favorite lord and a foreign envoy. You tighten your grip on the paper, feeling the burn of betrayal. You summon the Lord. He rises, pale, and bows. You ask if the rumors are true. His own tongue fails him. He shakes his head in denial even as you see the flicker of shame behind his eyes. Across the hall, the lady who brought the letter watches with triumph. Her rivalship with your own niece has been long and bitter. You have heard the whispers of poisoned perfumes used to weaken the child's beauty. You catch the lady's gaze, and she looks away, feigning innocence. You place the letter on your lap. You decree that the matter must be investigated in secret. You will punish the guilty, but spare the innocent. The lady's lips press into a thin line. Her victory seems hollow when measured against the ruin of a noble house. Later, you retire to the private gallery where your closest advisors wait. The corridor is lit by braziers that throw shifting shadows on the stone. You lead them behind heavy curtains into a small chamber. You speak softly of the factions that have formed. You describe the Council of the North who fear the influence of a southern family. You recount the tale of the chamberlain who whispers false counsel to your husband. You note the names of friends who have turned informant and call for their loyalty tests. A chamberlain uncorks a flask and pours wine into silver cups. You take a sip, tasting the bitterness that has seeped into every alliance. You lean forward and speak of the danger and secret lovers who betray both heart and crown. You recall the story of a young page who was found at dawn in the bedchamber of a duke. The shame of that scandal still echoes in the halls. You vow that no one is above scrutiny, no one beyond suspicion. Night falls, and you command a private supper in the solar. Only those you trust share the table. You seat a few courtiers who have proven steadfast. Each receives a bowl of steaming stew and a loaf of bread. You speak of loyalty as the hallows of the realm. You watch the flame dance in their eyes. You see the guard captain nod and the tutor bow his head. You feel a flicker of warmth. In this small circle, you find a spark of trust amid the darkness of betrayal. The door opens once more, and a priest enters, carrying a small chest of relics. He bows deeply and lifts the lid to reveal a fragment of bone said to cure treachery. You press your palm to the cold wood and utter a quiet prayer. You vow to protect the realm from secret poisons both of mind and body. You send the relic back with a blessing for the chapel, where it will rest until needed. As midnight approaches, you return to the battlements alone. The wind whistles through the crenellations and chills you to the bone. You gaze out at the city lights that burn like dying embers. You know that envy and betrayal have seeped into every corner of the palace. You feel the loneliness of your station, as every friend could become a foe. You vow to remain vigilant, to watch every whisper, to shield your heart from the venom of courtly ambition. You descend to your private suite and remove the heavy cloak you have worn all day. You set it aside and let your simple night shift wrap around you instead. You kneel at your bedside altar and cross yourself in silence. You pray for clarity and fortitude against the schemers who would see you fall. You whisper the names of those you trust and ask for their protection. At last you lie upon your bed, wrapping the blankets around you. You close your eyes and feel the weight of the crown still upon your brow even in sleep. The shadows in the corners of the room seem to whisper the names of traitors. You tighten your fists beneath the sheets and vow to face the dawn unbowed. You know that jealousy and betrayal will never yield, yet you carry the burden of leadership and the power to punish the wicked. In the hush of the night, you find a fierce resolve to stand against backstabbing and ruin. You will navigate the rivalries and secret passions that threaten your reign. You will root out the traitors and reward the loyal. You will forge alliances as steel is tempered by fire. You will remain queen amid the shifting loyalties and secret lovers who test your power. And when morning comes, you will rise once more to meet the court with a smile that conceals the blade of justice you carry in your heart. You wake before dawn to a summons from the chamberlain. A letter has arrived on fine parchment sealed with red wax. Every courier these days is watched for hidden ciphers. You break the seal in a small inner chamber to ensure no one else sees. The message inside is from a distant ally. You read each line twice, mindful that even a misinterpretation could spark a diplomatic incident. By first light, you cross the great hall toward the private scriptorium. Your ladies in waiting trail behind you, carrying the day's correspondence. Each letter must be opened in your presence and read aloud so that you may reply immediately. The court clerks hover with quills poised, their eyes flicking between your face and the parchment, searching for any sign of displeasure or hidden meaning. You dictate your responses with measured care. When you sign each scroll, you dip your quill in ink and press firmly, crafting a signature that is both your mark and a guarantee of your word. Ambassadors waiting outside pore over the fragments of wax and ribbons left on your desk. They study your handwriting to glean the mood behind your words. You know that a slanted flourish could be judged as sarcasm or mockery. At midday, you attend a formal ceremony in the throne room. Every gesture, every nod, every slight tilt of the head is recorded by courtiers and spies alike. You rise and enter beneath the dais canopy. The assembly falls silent. You offer thanks for the prayers delivered on your behalf. You bow with the exact angle prescribed by etiquette manuals. A single degree more or less, and the ambassadors at the back would whisper that you show disdain or false humility. A foreign envoy steps forward. He offers a scroll of congratulations on your recent decree. You accept the scroll with a slight smile that you have practiced in a private mirror. The envoy studies your face for signs of weakness. You offer a kindly nod and a few words of gratitude. Even as you speak, you note the flash of his eyes as he files away each nuance of tone and expression. Later, you withdraw to a small gallery overlooking the city. Spies and informants attend you in secret. One hands you a folded note that has been passed through a dozen hands. He assures you it contains news of a plot to discredit your favorites. You open it and read in silence. You memorize the names, then burn the paper in a brazier. Not a scrap may remain to betray your knowledge. Even that swift action is noted by your closest advisor. In the afternoon, you visit the infirmary where your cousin lies ill. You speak to him in a low voice, offering prayers and a promise of care. His eyes narrow. He whispers a warning that his sickness may be a poison meant for you. You place a gentle hand on his shoulder and promise an investigation. You step away, knowing that every word you spoke will be repeated, dissected, and used by rival factions to shape opinion. Dinner is served in the private dining room. A small group sits around an oak table. Food is presented in perfect silence, then tasted slowly. You break bread with a knife you carry yourself to guard against tampering. Each bite you take is observed by those who wish to see you fail. A single wince at overly salted broth could be read as contempt for the chef or for the empire itself. After the meal, you retreat to the library for evening study. A candle flickers beside you as you pore over treaties and dispatches. You must decide which alliances to renew and which to let lapse. You draft letters into the late hours. Every word you write will circulate in diplomatic channels. Each sentence carries the power of peace or the threat of war. As the hour grows late, you step onto the balcony to breathe the night air. Below, you hear the murmurs of lantern-lit patrols. The city sleeps, but you remain vigilant. You know that under the cloak of darkness, your name is still on many tongues, beneath many pillows, in many dreams of both hope and conspiracy. Before you retire, you kneel at your bedside altar. You pray for wisdom to navigate the endless gaze of spies and ambassadors. You ask for courage to remain true to your people, even as you are watched from every shadow. You rise and slip into your night shift. You close your eyes and steel yourself for another day of living under constant scrutiny, where every letter is read and every gesture is judged. You would not last a day as a medieval queen without the strength to bear the eyes of 1,000 watchers. You rise before dawn to the sound of hooves and the clip-clop of armor being fitted at the stable yard. The air is cold, and mist clings to the ground like a pale shroud. You step into your riding habit of thick wool and leather boots that lace up your calves. You lean forward to pat your mare's broad neck and feel the animal tremble with restless energy. Beyond the stables, you see banners fluttering at half-mast and rows of tents pitched against the ivy-clad walls. A captain approaches and bows, his sword hanging empty at his side. You listen as he reports the state of your forces, men thin in number, yet fierce in spirit. He speaks of the enemy's approach along the valley road, and of scouts driven back at dawn. You clasp gloved hands before you and nod, summoning courage for the journey ahead. You cannot wield a sword or strike a blow, but you can stand among those who do. You mount your mare with the help of a page. The saddle creaks under your weight as you settle into your seat. Torches line the ramparts and flicker against fresh rain on stone. As you pass through the gate, you hear the drum of war in the distance. It beats like a living heartbeat that calls you forward. You urge your mare toward the orchard path, where the lines of soldiers wait in rigid formation. When you arrive, the men stand at attention, their faces set in grim determination. Each bears the scars of past skirmishes and the terror of battles yet to come. You feel a pang at the sight of so many youth bent beneath armor and hunger. You raise your arm and call out a greeting that echoes across the field. You speak of the realm's safety, of the honor in defending hearth and home, and of your trust in their strength. The soldiers lower their weapons and raise a cheer that shakes the morning air. You feel a fierce joy as you hear their voices unite under your banner. You wish you could ride into battle at their side, but know your place is here to encourage rather than to strike. A cry of, "For the Queen," rings again and again until it fades into the hills beyond. A herald rides forward, bearing a pouch of letters sealed with wax. You accept them and take a moment to read news from the front lines. Reports of skirmishes, of hard-won ground, of casualties mounting on both sides. You fold the letters and place them in your bosom. You will share this information with the captains in private council after rallying the troops. You dismount and move among the ranks on foot. You offer a firm word to each company commander. You clasp a shoulder in solidarity with a knight whose visor is dented and whose shield bears a fresh scar. You meet the gaze of a young foot soldier whose eyes are rimmed red with fear. You press a coin into his hand and promise that whatever comes you will see his family provided for. His lips tremble, then curve into a determined smile. The roar of enemy horns drifts across the valley. You raise your hand for quiet and listen to the distant clang of steel on steel. The time for words has ended, and the moment for action draws near. You step back onto your mare and signal to the captain. He leads the advance guard forward while you ride at the head of the column to lend your presence as a symbol of hope. Your procession moves past the orchard and into rough terrain. Boggy ground sucks at the horse's hooves. You feel each jolt as your mare labors through mud. The sun breaks through ragged clouds and shines on your armor breastplate. You taste dust in the air and steel on your tongue. You recall your vow to bear this burden even though you cannot wield a blade. At a hill crest you pause and survey the field. Below you see enemy forces drawn in lines of red and black. Their banners snap in the wind. You lift a hand and speak a prayer for your soldiers. You feel the weight of their hopes and fears settle upon you as surely as if it were cast from stone. A captain kneels and offers his sword. He begs you to take it in blessing. You place both hands on the haft and whisper words of courage. You hand it back so that he may lead the charge with the kingmaker's favor upon his steel. The soldier bows and grasps the sword like a lifeline. You return to the ranks and watch as commanders issue the orders. Horns blow, and the air trembles with the sound of marching feet. Horses rear and snort. You feel the surge of adrenaline as the lines move forward. You grip the pommel of your saddle as though steering destiny itself. The first clash of steel rings out a mile below. You stand tall in your saddle, blood pounding in your ears and heart. You cannot join the melee, but your presence is your weapon. You call out encouragement and watch as men rally under your gaze. You catch sight of a young soldier driven back by fear. You shout his name, and he turns, steel in hand, renewed in spirit. The sun lowers beyond the tree line, and you order the lines to hold their ground. You will return to the palace with reports and with survivors. You pat your mare's neck in thanks for her service. You send a messenger with your orders to hold until relief arrives. You listen to the distant cries of battle growing faint as dusk falls. You ride back along the road past tents, now lit with lanterns. You smell smoke from cooking fires and the blood on the blade of a passing soldier. You lean forward to ask after the wounded. You promise swift aid at the field hospital. You vow that no soldier need face death alone. When you reach the palace gate, you dismount and stand upon the steps. Soldiers stand guard, many still weary and hungry. You offer each a word of thanks and promise that dawn will bring fresh supplies. You enter behind the heavy doors, leaving the clash of weapons behind in silence. Your private chamber beckons with its warmth. You remove your riding habit and let your ladies bind the wounds on your arms from branches and brambles. You stand before the mirror and see the face of a queen who has ridden to battle, yet cannot wield a sword. You feel pride in the tears in your eyes and strength in the set of your jaw. You kneel at your bedside altar for a final prayer as candles gutter low. You pray for the souls of those who fell and for the safety of those who still fight under your banner. You cross yourself and whisper the names of soldiers whose courage you witnessed. You rise and lie upon soft sheets, heart still racing with the memory of war's terror. You close your eyes and vow to rise again before dawn to answer the battle's demands. You know you cannot bear arms, but you can carry the hopes of a realm on your shoulders. You feel the tremor of fear and the fire of purpose fighting within you. You kneel once more beneath the hush of night, ready for the next call to war. You stand before the bier draped in black velvet as the tolling bell echoes through empty corridors. Your husband's body lies silent beneath the cloth that once gleamed with gold thread. The court has gathered in hushed rows, yet none meets your gaze. You feel the weight of widowhood settle on your shoulders like a shroud heavier than any crown. In the days that follow, the palace grows colder with your silence. Courtiers whisper of your counsel that once guided the realm, now fallen silent with grief. The new regent regards you as a threat to his authority. He orders your apartments stripped of finery and your jewels collected for the treasury. You stand in simple robes and offer no protest. Every gesture is watched for a spark of outrage to justify your removal. One dawn, a messenger arrives bearing orders of banishment. You meet his gaze without fear as he reads the decree that you must leave the palace within the hour. No ride of dignity or caravan of retainers waits beyond the gates. You must depart alone with nothing but your traveling cloak and a small purse of coin. You bow your head in acceptance. Widowhood has become exile, and you will bear both without complaint. At the gate you step onto the road that once welcomed triumphant armies. Now the path is lined with soldiers whose loyalty has shifted. They watch you pass with blank expressions, A few lower their lances in respect, but most do not meet your eyes. You feel the miles unwinding beneath your cloak as the palace recedes into the mist. You breathe deeply and remind yourself that dignity is yours still to claim. You reach a humble manor, where a distant cousin has offered shelter. The walls are low stone and the windows small. Candlelight flickers in the entry hall. You step inside and find only a handful of retainers to welcome you. The fires burn dimly and rations are meager. You kneel at the hearth to draw warmth from the embers. You feel the chill of exile in your bones, but also a glimmer of freedom. Before you can recover your strength, a mounted herald arrives with a sealed message. The letter is from a neighboring king who seeks to cement his alliance with your late husband's line. He offers marriage and the promise of lands you will never truly inherit. You open the scroll and read the terms of a dynastic pact in which you are the prize. You press your palm to the paper and taste the bitterness of being traded once more. You know this union could restore your status, but trap you anew in another gilded cage. You gather your courage and summon the herald. You refuse the proposal. You will not marry again for power, but only for love if it ever finds you. The herald bows and retreats, leaving you alone with your resolve. That night, you stand beneath a sky, unbroken by torchlight. The stars feel colder than any palace has ever felt warm. You gaze at the constellations and vow to build a new life on your own terms. Widowhood, exile, and forced offers of marriage may have stripped you of crowns and comforts, but they cannot conquer your spirit. You will rise beyond the roles that sought to define you: queen, captive bride, and exile. You are more than a pawn in dynastic games, and you will forge your own destiny from the ashes of loss. You awake before dawn once more to the soft toll of chapel bells calling you to prayer. From the moment your eyes open until the instant you fall asleep, you serve the realm at every turn. You rise in gowns that constrict your body and hide beneath layers of velvet and silk. You kneel for prayers in cold stone chambers and answer petitions from every corner of the kingdom. You preside over audiences, grant justice, inspect harvests, and sign decrees that shape the lives of thousands. Every breath is measured in duty. By mid-morning, you stand before assembled envoys bearing gifts and pleas for alliance. You walk the halls of power with measured steps, every gesture watched by spies and ambassadors. Behind your courteous smile lies the knowledge that one misplaced word could spark rebellion or ruin a treaty. You carry the weight of every promise made in your name and every threat issued to those who would harm your people. In the afternoon, you watch soldiers muster in the courtyard and hear reports from distant frontiers. You offer words of encouragement to hardened veterans whose loyalty is tested by cold and hunger. You travel to the edge of battlefields to rally troops by your presence alone, unable to wield a sword but determined to show courage equal to theirs. You bear witness to sacrifices that would break a lesser spirit. As evening falls, you return to court to oversee feasts of lavish splendor. You dress in finery that chafes your skin and hide beneath undergarments soaked with sweat. You dine with nobles who laugh and conspire at the same board. You offer toasts and dispense favor while your mind calculates every alliance and every slight. You taste every dish yourself to guard against poison, even as you pray for a moment of peace. Night brings little rest. You retreat to your private chambers to read reports of famine and plague within the palace walls. You stir poultices for the sick, parcel out the last grain stores, and field new offers of marriage meant to secure fresh alliances. You bear the sorrow of exile and widowhood, the sting of betrayal by those you once trusted, and the burden of dynastic pacts that treat you as a bargaining chip. When you finally close your eyes, it is only to a few hours of restless sleep. You rise again to fulfill your role in the ceaseless cycle of power and sacrifice. You have known the ache of hollowed bones from endless vigils, the humiliation of public ceremony, the terror of the battlefield, the sorrow of farewell, and the glare of suspicion. No one sees the mistress of midnight letters who studies traitors in the flicker of a single lamp. No one hears the silent prayers you whisper in the stillness of the chapel, or the tears you shed in private at the memory of lost children or fallen friends. You carry the shape of a kingdom in your heart and stand in place of 1,000 voices and 1,000,000 hopes. Would you last a day as a medieval queen? Could you rise before dawn to pray and then stand in judgment beneath the midday sun? Could you face the threat of poison in every cup and the blade of rebellion in every sword? Could you wield power that could save a life and withhold it in mercy? Only a spirit forged by trial and steady resolve can endure this life of endless duty and dangerous politics. Only a heart bound by love for one's people can carry the weight of a crown. You would not last a day unless you carried within you the fierce grace of a true queen.